it was 2019 when I came into this work, and I came into it with an individual therapist who, I was sort of ripe for it. I'm a physical therapist by training. I'd worked in mental health forever, and I had a really lovely gift of being really connected to holding a safe container for healing to occur, but I didn't have the words for it. And I knew there's a lot to be improved upon in the frameworks where I was working. And so having it introduced by my individual therapist, my system was like wildfire excited to go. And luckily that practitioner was really good at slowing me down. This is going to work. We're going to make it work fast. So she kept me slow, but it led me to a podcast with Irene, which I had to listen to it in 3 different settings, because the parenting conversation was what made my system zing. I was like sweeping this kitchen, and I just left the planet at one of your comments, and I thought, oh, I'm disassociating right now. I'm gonna pause this. I'm gonna let it soak in, and it probably took me like 5 weeks to listen to that like 2-hour conversation that you had with another podcast host, and it just was like an exponential growth from there. So by the time I did SBSM in 2020, I was in the unfreezing stage. I was an athlete. I was a high achiever. I was numb, and my systems were breaking down. Like I couldn't absorb nutrition. I was losing muscle mass on a regular basis. I had heart arrhythmias. I like qualified clinically to have POTS. It was very extreme. And having been an athlete, I never stopped exercising. So having my body just continue to fall apart was horrifying. And going to traditional medicine and being told you look great was also horrifying. So it was such a relief to feel like vitality come back into my body, and to stop being afraid of what was going on, and to get a framework for the deterioration and the hope, like the cellular reorientation to hope that I am not dying slowly with nothing to do about it, was one of many gifts that ultimately saved me and my children. So in SBSM in 2020, I was unfreezing and it was very startling, but because of all the knowledge that I was getting here, and I had a practitioner that I was working with individually, both the program and she were able to hold me really tightly as I was experiencing things that could have been very scary. It scared my kids sometimes, right? Because I was being totally frozen. I was so calm, y'all. I could handle any tantrum, any place, anytime, genuinely, but there was misattunement in it, right? So they didn't feel heard and seen as they were melting down, even though I was right there, even though I was doing the right actions. They were like, Mama, you don't feel me. And they were right. And so, which was also like really painful for me, because I had dedicated my entire life to being their mom. And here I was doing everything in my power to be with them. And there was still this distance, and they felt alone. And so as I was unfreezing, there was like an interesting reorientation for all of us. My oldest especially was like, oh, Mom, huh? And she started to say things like, yeah, good for you, Mom. I was like, oh, it's so interesting. We're all wired for this intuition and plugging back into truth, or trusting our truth. But it is really fun to watch your kids like get it right there and call you out on it and meet you there. Okay, so the unfreezing, I'm so grateful to have had this program in the way that I had it, so that I had live calls where faces were there. And it was COVID. So losing normal human interaction was both helpful because I didn't have to go unfreeze in public, but it was also isolating. So the container of this program allowed me to not be afraid of what was happening and keep being reminded of titration, which I still need reminders for titration even today. So and the dissociation response is my is like the muscle that my body has always used the most. And it's so I was parenting in dissociation, which again was that calm, like I was so calm. And coming out of that and the like feeling the floor beneath my feet and being in my body in a consistent way, probably for the first time in my life in the past 5-6 years. I've watched my children embody themselves in a way I don't think they could have at this point in their lives if I hadn't done that first. And so I am so grateful that as I learned, I could trust myself, and I learned that my body wasn't the broken part, and that my distress in situations was the right thing to listen to, not the thing to override and ignore. So I came to trust myself. That gave my permission to my kids to feel their full range of emotion, because the words were always in my home. The words were always in their lives, but they weren't trustworthy. They didn't believe me because I wasn't connected to myself. So once that plugged in, the flowers bloomed. So the things that I had been trying to do suddenly worked. And it feels like magic, but it's not actually magic. It's just how we're supposed to human. A healthy expression of aggression, I'd say that's been the biggest gift in our family, because they always had permission for it. They didn't trust the permission because I wasn't expressing any aggression. And that's what my oldest probably compliments the most is, there you are, Mom. I knew you had it in you. What? Oh, okay. And which is such a gift, right? Because I'm being seen, she has permission, they have permission, and that filters into their friend groups, into other parent conversations. It's a community change when one parent changes in this way. I can observe them in real time. So when they're having their big struggles and their big charges, I can observe and make choices. And I don't think if I hadn't started this work when they were before teenagehood, I can't imagine how hard it might have been. And so me being able to take beats and ask curious questions about what they feel in their bodies to get them out of their heads or to get them out of up here. I'm so grateful for it. And my oldest and youngest both have verbalized, and they've said, how do you do that? How do you stay with us? And my answer has been, well, I don't think I end up with you. Like, I'm here and I see it, but I don't have to go all the way to where you are to feel where you are. And so that it's just changed everything about how our house works.